Exactly 1 year ago today, I was at Shul for Simchas Torah, standing outside during a prayer service called Yizkor, when I overheard a conversation. Have you heard the updates? I don't use my phone on Yom Tov, so no, I hadn't heard the updates. I immediately asked my mom what was happening. The head of security at my shul explained that Israel was under attack. My thoughts immediately went to the friends and family I have there. How will I know if they are okay? For the rest of that day, that night, and the next day, I longed to text my friends and see the news for myself. I couldn't concentrate. Last year's Simchas Torah was different than any I had ever experienced. Instead of dancing, singing, and celebrating the most joyous day of the year, we were all preoccupied with thinking of something else and someone else. 365 days later, we stand here to recall that horrible moment when hundreds of heavily armed Hamas soldiers entered Israel and murdered, burned, and captured over 1,000 Jewish Israelis, non-Jewish Israelis, Americans, and others. Ages ranging from less than a year old, the youngest prisoner of war in history, to the ages of each one of us, to the ages of our grandparents. For 365 days, our thoughts and prayers keep on coming back to the 101 hostages that are still being held captive in Gaza, to the 1,200 Israeli citizens who have been killed since October 7th, to the thousands of families that can't return home because their homes are under constant missile attack, to the 200,000 plus IDF soldiers who have put a hold on their normal lives in order to protect Israel since October 7th. 365 days later, we also stand together at a moment in time between the two holiest days of the Jewish year. With Yom Kippur only days away, the opportunity for self-reflection and personal growth seems real and possible. But in a time of so much sadness, distress, and grief, I feel conflicted. How can I focus inward on my growth, my personal reflection, when the world around me is crying out in pain? The differences between these two realities creates a tension within many of us. October 7th pushes us to focus on the trauma of our community, while Rosh Hashanah pushes us to focus our reflection inward. Which should we prioritize? Which focus do we choose? So what if I only focus on myself at the expense of my community? To me, this option feels impossible. We couldn't do this even if we wanted to. We were all impacted by the events of October 7th, and it's hard to ignore that. At TVT, whether you are Jewish or not Jewish, religious or not religious, we all experienced the shock of that day together. And for many of us, that trauma began in this very gathering space when we came together close to 1 year ago. Sure, this isn't Israel, but we are impacted in other ways. We all experienced the surge of anti-Semitism. We all saw the rapid increase in security on our campus. We all made the choice whether or not to come to school after Hamas called for a day of worldwide violence against the Jews. We all heard about the tent cities and shouts to free Palestine on college campuses. We all wonder, will the next place that I study be the one where I need to be scared to express who I am? So maybe I should be focused in the other direction. Maybe I should be carried away by the trauma of October 7th and focus only on the greater Jewish and Israeli community, even if it means neglecting myself. What would this year have looked like if we constantly said to ourselves, who am I to enjoy life when there are hostages who have been living in misery for 365 days? But can that mindset be healthy? It would be impossible not to get paralyzed by the constant news cycle and updates. By choosing me, I end up just feeling selfish, and by choosing the trauma of my community, I end up feeling like I don't want to get out of bed. It's like there's no good answer. 2,000 years ago, the great sage Hillel must have been dealing with a similar struggle, facing a tension we still feel today. He asked the question that has echoed through time. How do we care for ourselves without forgetting our responsibility to others? Im ein ani li, mi li, v'kshe'ani la'atzmi, ma ani. If I am not for me, who will be for me? But if I'm for myself alone, what am I? Hillel highlights the tension of a moment that must have been so similar to ours and challenges us to balance being for ourselves with not just being only for ourselves. Rabbi Hillel reminds us that maybe we don't need to choose. 2,000 years after Hillel said these words, we are asking the same question. How do we find a balance between these two extremes? We can look to the Torah for help. When Moshe received the 10 Commandments, he broke the first set and was then given a second. However, when the Israelites continued their journey from Mount Sinai, not only did they carry the new 10 Commandments, they also brought the broken set with them as well. Leaving the broken set would mean leaving behind the memory of a significantly low moment in their past. This must have been a moment they really wanted to move on from, but for some reason, they knew that they couldn't. For some reason, they knew that the moment of rejecting God so soon after Revelation was something they could not forget. Carrying only the whole set with them would be like allowing themselves to omit this moment. The way the Israelites acted at that moment feels like what Hillel is talking about. Finding a way to hold my quest for Yom Kippur wholeness with the brokenness of the community together in one package. As we make our way from October 7th, the English anniversary, to Simchas Torah, the Hebrew anniversary, we carry our brokenness and our wholeness together. We carry the tragedy that took place and the strength and unity that has emerged in its wake. The prophet Ezekiel says, "V'aten so'ani son meriti adam atem." For you, my flock, the flock that I tend, are a person. The whole of the Jewish people is one person, Adam. If one part of the body hurts, the whole body hurts. We are all broken on different levels and to varying degrees, and finding where we fit on this complicated spectrum and having all these different levels in one community is a real challenge at times. But our commitment to the value of Klal Yisrael is a promise to carry the brokenness together. So as we stand here at the start of this day, we powerfully declare that when Israel is hurting, everyone is hurting. And maybe for right now, that's enough. So while the 10 days of repentance that we are in right now is time to focus inward, we must never forget those who we are grieving for. We must never forget our hope for a brighter future. Every Friday night, as I light the Shabbat candles with my mom, I feel the weight of those who cannot. Since October 7th, I've lit 2 candles, one for me and one for them, for the souls in captivity, for the lives lost, for the hope of return. Im ein ani li, mi li, v'ksh'ani la'atzmi, ma ani. If I am not for me, who will be for me? But if I'm for myself alone, what am I?